next session and also the final panel discussion session of this 2-day summit. Ransomware attacks, risks, protection and prevention. And before I call on stage the honorable panel members who are going to enrich us in this subject, few points of discussion I would like to highlight in front of you. How to keep your data safe with ransomware detection, how to prevent, detect and response to a ransomware attack, ransomware prevention and detection techniques and many more. So without taking further time of yours, let me welcome on stage the honorable panel members in the order of the sequence, and please help me welcome them with a big round of applause. Joining us first, Mr. Makesh Chandramohan, Group CISO from Aditya Birla Capital. A big round of applause to Makesh. Welcome to the panel, sir. Please have your seat. Joining next, we have Mr. Mayank Mehta, CISO from Bajaj Allianz Live. A big round of applause to Mayank. Mayank, welcome to the panel. Please have your seat. Joining next, we have Mr. Parshuram, Dabholkar, CISO from HDFC Securities. A big round of applause to Parshuram. Welcome to the panel. Please have your seat. Joining next, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Bhavesh Kumar, CISO and Vice President IFFCO Finance Limited. A big round of applause to Bhavesh. Welcome back, Bhavesh, and please have your seat. Joining next, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Raja Mohan Kandlukunda, General Manager IT and CISO from IFFCO Tokyo General Insurance Company. A big round of applause to Raja Mohanji. Welcome to the panel, sir. Please have your seat. And now, ladies and gentlemen, would like to call on stage the honorable moderator, Mr. Sanjay Jaiswal, Head Application and IT Security from Nuvama Wealth Management. A big round of applause to Sanjay. Sanjay, welcome to the panel. Please have your seat. And gentlemen, he is wishing all the success to this panel and looking forward to a great session. All over to you, Sanjay.
Okay, before start, hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the next group to provide this platform and the opportunity to speak here and discuss about ransomware. And thanks you all for taking the time and joining us to talk on ransomware attack, risk, protection and prevention. So, as everyone aware about the ransomware, so there is nothing, it's called kind of like a new word or a new term. So everyone knows about the definition, how to define ransomware and what ransomware is all about. So, but however, I will just call it in a couple of words, is nothing but a malware attack. And all malware attack is again not a ransomware. As an example, I will say about the exfiltration. And the best example of an exfiltration attack is nothing but the Uber, where attacker has attacked the Uber and have the data, and they have publicly disposed the data, but have not asked for any ransomware. And as we have seen in the previous session, now since the evaluation of the new technologies, now attacks are mostly happening on Android, Mac OS, Mac systems. Okay, so at the same point of time, we have to be on the secure side as well to on the ransomware. Before starting the discussion with the HDFC panel member, I have one question for everyone. Do anyone knows when first ransomware attack carried out? Anyone? Okay, so it is carried out in 18, yeah. Okay, can anyone give mic?
Ransomware was there from 2013. Before that, but WannaCry, which was come in 2017, got a lot of famous. It got a lot of. It get famous a lot because WannaCry will able to target a lot of customers.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're not Google right now. Okay, so even I was not aware of, and sincerely I have not Googled yesterday, but I was preparing one article for a magazine, and at that point of time I have searched, and surprisingly I came to know that it was carried out in 1989, and malware name was Trojan, which hides the file and encrypts the file name. And unfortunately, even the decrypt code was there in the Trojan code itself. It was developed, if I am not wrong, Joseph Pop. He has developed that malware. So that was the history of ransomware. So let's start with the discussion. So as we have seen about ransomware, so whenever ransomware happens, what is the most intention of the ransomware attack or malware attack is to breach the data. So I would like Makesh sir to give up points and to provide his view on how we can safeguard or safeguard our data basically.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think it's a very big subject, and though it is not new, I think we are discussing about an advanced malware or ransomware for quite some time right now. And it's no more a myth. We are seeing that a reality happening in front of us. And it is getting matured day by day. Right? Gone are days where ransomware was executed only by encrypting the data and asking for some benefits. Now it has moved to next level of extortion, then double extortion, then selling the actual data beyond that as well to dark web market, and causing a huge damage in terms of legal and regulatory issues and reputational issues to the organizations. Now, in a simple way, like any other threat, I think there are basic fundamental things which we need to follow in terms of actually identifying the vulnerabilities and patching the systems. Keep a very secure environment overall by putting a layered defense approach across different layers of technologies. Creating a lot of awareness in terms of ensuring people are completely aware about the channels which can be used to pass any malwares. These are all very, very basic stuff. I don't think none of us are having any doubts about it. But beyond that, what we can do is definitely identify the ground jewel data and isolate that with an air gap arrangement. And ensure even if data is getting encrypted or it is getting stolen, you have a copy of data to recreate that. But in today's ransomware attack, as I mentioned some time back, it has gone beyond that particular threat of just encrypting the data and then allowing you to decrypt it after paying the amount. Because it impacts the confidentiality of the data, which is going to be a huge risk for the organizations, especially when we are talking about the data privacy law is on the verge of actually coming to life. So while we follow the basic principles of protections, we should also improve the awareness of the people and ensure your ground jewels are segregated and put it into a separate bucket, and ensure that is not impacted by ransomware. And there are technology solutions which are available. I'm not going to talk about it because none of the solutions are 100% foolproof. But I think we can work with a framework which puts combination of multiple technologies, and we can also put relevance governance mechanism to ensure that it is properly tested in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Makesh sir. So Makesh has provided us the information on how we can provide the data by isolating the systems and isolating the data from the operations. Bhavesh sir, next to you. So can you just put up the highlights and your view how we can basically detect and respond to any of the ransomware attack?
Okay, as Makesh said, ransomware is a very vast subject. So we should understand exactly what happens in a ransomware. So it's a sort of malware management, and every organization is doing malware management from quite some time. Close to a decade, malware management was one of the core subject of security, IT security or CISO function. But now what is happening? These attackers deploy, they innovate new ways to deploy malware in your environment and encrypt your data. Earlier, they used to only steal your data. Now what's happening? The moment they found nothing left in your organization, no need to, all data they have, or credentials, or your critical data. Once they take out from your environment, then they say, okay, now nothing left to take out. Let's encrypt that data and garner some more money from your data. So that is encryption of your data is the last stage of the attack. It's not a middle or first stage. So encryption happens when that attacker has nothing, left interest in your organization. So that is the first stage. So organization has to put more focus on malware management. But my question for me was after this attack, what to do? Look, handling ransomware attack is a complete holistic approach. Every department, or especially IT, legal and compliance, corporate communication, HR, and especially finance, the department has to collaborate to fight ransomware. Why legal and compliance? Because you have to file a criminal complaint, you have to inform your regulator. Why finance? Because most of the organization has not technology available to recover from ransomware attack. So you have to onboard immediately some vendor or partner who has expertise in scanning or recovering your data. Why that corporate communication? Because communication with all stakeholders will be required. One bad statement from your side can lead to rejection of your cyber insurance, or anything can happen. So it's a holistic approach. Every department must see to handle ransomware attack. Now, okay, you have already breached. All your data has been encrypted. Now what? So you have to identify the impact, where all impacts are, which all locations have been affected, or which all VLANs is still not affected. So isolate, after identification, isolate all these environments. And second point, rather is the first point, like every organization having, cyber crisis management plan, especially BFSI, it's a revision also to create cyber crisis management plan. Keep one area like how to handle or how to mitigate ransomware stuff also. So identify impacted area, then segregate all those areas as per your defined ransomware framework, ransomware mitigation framework, and then start recovering your data. If you have backup, you throw backup or any other mechanism. But one thing that is most important aspect in a ransomware after recovery, because you have to scan your organization very minutely. Because if that malware is still in your organization, maybe after 3 months or 6 months you will be another attack. So you either create your own mechanism or engage some good agency to scan your environment for that particular malware. One more thing I'd like to share from my experience: don't shut it down your environment. You will lose your forensic evidence. Then even a partner will not able to create that data or forensic evidence which is required to share with even regulator. So you should create a ransomware mitigation framework in your organization to counter that particular attack.
Thank you, Bhavesh sir. So just to conclude in a couple of words, I will say that Bhavesh has given a good insight on how we can detect early, because encryption will be the last part of the malware attack. And the second thought is nothing but to get involved all the stakeholders and seek the help from all the stakeholders where they can be of any help.
So Sanjay, just one more line. So what I addressed is the latter part, when you already breached. Right. Before that, you have so many stuff like how you should be ready for ransomware, how malware management happen, and what all different methods. It's a totally separate.
Completely agree, Bhavesh sir. So that will be nothing but my next point to Mayank sir. So Mayank sir, can you just give us your view on what are the preparations we can do before we get into the attack, and at the same point of time, like what are the techniques we can use so that before getting attack and before getting encrypted the data, we can safeguard the database.
Thanks, Sanjay. Firstly, good afternoon all. So, as the topic is ransomware, I think as someone rightly mentioned, it's not like we can discuss over half an hour and just move on. What ransomware is and what are the prevention techniques. But yes, we can take the synopsis of it and we can share it across with you. What are the practices that we are following as an organizations and throughout all your companies. So when we talk about the ransomware, mostly we need to first identify what are the areas through which ransomware will come into your organization. Now, if you research, most of you will identify the common methodology which is being used by the attackers in today's world also is through the normal phishing email, which most users are falling prey. So I don't know how much how much of you all do the phishing simulation to all your employees. So I would say do that continuously to gauge the understanding how many people are falling prey to it, and take the awareness sessions which each function in their specific tone to understand how it can be improved further and what are the basic checks in security they need to follow whenever they are getting any email from any unknown source or anywhere else. So that is the number one. So this is from the behavior pattern on the end user side. Second point is on the technology front. In today's scenario, as Makesh rightly mentioned, there is no technology which will give you 100% confidence on the security, but that doesn't stop us in deploying the best technologies that we have that will help detect, and not only detect but also prevent from the ransomware attacks that are being highlighted. So if I give an example, like EDR as a technology, it has evolved over the years, and all we are aware in this room, like traditional antivirus is not something that will help us across in defending against the normal malwares or advanced malwares or ransomware. We will require the advanced solutions in place, and most importantly, not only the deployment but also the upkeep and the continuous maintenance of those, and keeping the tight governance around the same. That is the key, which most of us would believe, yes, it's a bottom end, which generally the implementer will say, okay, I have deployed, but at the end it doesn't give the relevant, I would say, security to those specific things. So that's the other area. So wherever the emails, we talked about the devices or the technology of the servers, even the cloud for that matter, most of the organizations will be using their key or some of the other applications over the cloud. So cloud security is also important, checking out the misconfigurations on the access controls that is being given across, using the multi-factor authentication for the access, restricting the admin access over the open internet. I think that is one of the key, because most of the attacks that happen over the cloud, what we have understood is because of the lack of access control governance into the cloud environment, as well as not having the proper configuration. These are the two primary areas which companies are lacking here. So we should be having a strong governance mechanism around this thing. One of the, I was in some other, I would say, conference, and there was one, again, cyber resilience. There is a new term that has come out. So I understand we should take it seriously as an organization. and why this resilience will work. When we say ransomware, will do multiple damages. One, your operational, will go for toss. Your reputation goes for toss, and you will have a heavy penalty from, your ability as well. So these are the three areas where, ransomware will affect us. Now, coming on to the precautionary measures, I would say the tape backup that we have, okay, the traditional method. I would say that is one of the traditional methods which for the data center we should be following. And keeping it in separate environment, because at the end of the day, even if your servers are compromised or backup of online backup compromised, but still you have a tape backup of maybe 1 week or 1 month prior, which you can still utilize and get it. So that is the worst case scenario which you can get your data back. Okay. On the cloud, yes, for the cloud you cannot do this, or maybe you can have a different arrangement on the same lines, but you can pull the data on the data center and then have this. But there are also many, I would say, offerings available in the cloud, wherein you can have a different account created, and you can have the data replicated, have a strong encryption mechanism. You can bring your own key for the encryption of your data. So all those sorts of things are available. So I would say stick to the basics, but along with the basics, also enhance your technological controls, which will help you as an organization to deter this ransomware attacks in much better.
Sanjay, I just have a couple of points to add here. So as I told earlier, and he also mentioned that technology solutions are evolving, so be it the offensive side also, right? So one of the methodology which we actually use and I nurture personally with my environment as well is to do a continuous assessment and monitoring of technology controls what we are implementing. So this is required to ensure that the effectiveness and efficacy of the controls are maintained to the threat landscape which is evolving day by day. Second is to see that whether is there any misconfigurations which are happening beyond the cloud environment which we cannot see when it happens in on-premises environment. So I have one of my senior colleagues sitting here who's actually heading Red Team series, and his personal, one of the key objective is to continuously assess and breach the security technologies which we are implementing. So it's a crisscross KRA for my team members, where somebody will implement, somebody will breach it, right? So it will give the effectiveness goes upwards on a continuous basis, and it ensures the efficiency of the controls are continuously monitored and kept up to the mark. That's the point. One of the other points which he mentioned about cyber resilience. Now things are slightly moving beyond that, where organizations have started looking at data resilience. Data resilience is something where we ensure our backup is also predominantly secured in such a way. Even if your primary data or the tape backup goes down because of the ransomware, it cannot reach the data which is kept for ransomware prevention. As he mentioned, a couple of methodologies which are used without much of tools is to have a segregated channel of data movement and kept in a completely and isolated environment, have a different set of ID opening up and accessing only for a specific period of time, have a preventive control of network controls, which is allowed only for data movement period. Likewise, there are a series of controls and methodologies which are used to ensure that your data backup is not actually impacted because of ransomware. If you see in last few recent ransomware attacks which have successfully happened, the hacker's first target is to touch and impact the backup, and then comes to the primary to impact, because by the time organization realizes there is an impact, their backup is already under the control of hackers. So I think data resilience is paramount important, and it has to be taken very seriously beyond the cyber resilience part. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, sure, sir.
I would like to add to Makesh's point on backup. It is always preferred to have 3-to-1 approach, where data is backed up in 3 different locations, and 2 media two medias, like one disk and one tape kind of thing. And one set of backup is on offsite, at least. We'll have DC, DR, backup, everything in place. But we have to ensure that this 3-to-1 approach is followed. And nowadays, few OEMs are approaching us with immutable backup. They are claiming that it is ransomware protected. We haven't tested it so far. We have to see how it is successful. What they are claiming is immutable backup will help. That ransomware will not be able to encrypt that immutable backup. The name itself is saying. So we have to see how it works and how foolproof it is from ransomware. Thank you.
Thank you. So it was a good point of discussion where we have discussed on simulation, email phishing simulation, cloud security, cyber resilience, especially Makesh says about the data resilience and the continuous assessment. So I will now request Parshuram sir, can you just give me your visibility on like we do almost like everyone does the vulnerability assessments and even findings are getting closed. But what if there are some vulnerabilities for which we are taking out an exceptions, okay? How we are going to protect against that for ransomware? At the same time, what are our other exceptions from the data perspective? Like we are enabling multiple users with some uploads, write, download, write access, okay? So even malicious things can be downloaded over the internet. So what are the techniques we can use there, kind of like just as an example, I'm from Honeypot, okay? So what we can use there and how we can prevent the ransomware in such scenarios?
Good afternoon. So we should have your VAPD program running. I mean, we have to ensure that VAPD is completely handled in the proper way and all the critical vulnerabilities are closed. Okay, this is the channel where you will not know any exception is there already and it could be any payload could be dropped from that channel and your data would be encrypted. So this one, this channel could be particularly open. Okay, and you should also have a list of your complete inventory. Inventory is mostly, nobody knows it, what inventory we have, how many endpoints you have, and each of the solution which you deploy, you will get different count. I'm sure most of the people sitting here must not be knowing what are the endpoints or how many servers are live in the network. So unless and until you know how many endpoints or what is your infra, you can't protect it. Okay, so that thing also you have to ensure. So whenever you know that how much all the endpoints are there, and you can have solutions like NAC also deployed, where you can know what exactly you have and whether the solutions or security solutions are correctly deployed, and you can totally avoid such systems which are not having all the agents to stop communicating on the network. So this will also prevent and have complete control of your network. So that satisfies your answer, or?
Yeah, very much. So that will be really great, sir. Thanks for the response.
Yeah, so one more thing, actually, I think we are missing. There is a term called cyber resiliency. But going ahead, there is also term which we do right now is ransomware drill. See, everybody wants to get and recover fast from ransomware. But suppose you are getting encrypted, or your chances of getting encrypted, what will you do? So we do DR drill, but we are not doing some ransomware drill where you could actually practice or simulate this kind of drills. So one kind of Saturday or surprise, you can ask people who have such kind of drills where all your IT people, your SOC, NOC works on it and actually simulates this environment. Okay, so not just having DR drill, you can also have a ransomware drill where your critical databases could be replicated, and you can check what is the RTO for this.
So kind of an actual simulation to be done by
us. Not doing it.
Yeah.
When you want to go close to that environment, you want to get rid of this, you want to check whether you could recover actually. So this is what actually can be followed, and you would be fastest to recover if you are doing the drills.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot, and you have really provided us a good point to have kind of like a actual simulation to be done on from the cyber ransomware attack as well. What's a similar line with you? So, how you will be able to provide the internal visibility when it is related to the trades or trade intel or maybe a kind of like a ransomware attack?
Okay, so as I said in my previous slide, when security, IT security department or CISO function is preparing any kind of mitigation strategy, risk mitigation strategy related to malware environment, they had to take care of lots of things. My co-panelists have already explained backups, cyber resiliency, and multiple stuff. And all these things are equally important. Few things I would like to add on top of that. Internally, in fact, about awareness is already mentioned that. So in organization, you have to create one cyber awareness or cyber culture. Like anything, whether it's through email or through SMS, if any malicious or how to identify malicious stuff is coming in your organization, your employee, your user should always be aware and suspicious about all these things. The moment they receive any email, they should be able to differentiate in a genuine email or phishing email. Multiple times, your organization send internal SMS. They should be able to understand what is the genuine SMS from my organization and what is the missing, stuff. Because malware can come through any way. Now I am coming on a few points like control your endpoint. It's not like malware will only come through SMS, payload or phishing thing. Maybe any of the user infected from malware any point of time, maybe 3 months back, 6 months back, that malware is silent in the environment. Your antivirus or malware management team not able to identify. One day when that user is in a main network in your head office or in your data center environment, that malware will activate and infect or grow slowly to the different network. So malware management is important, but endpoint management is equally important. Configure your endpoint as per security requirement. That's very important. And then patching. We have seen that organizations are having a very good way to patch Windows patch. But what about that support application patches? You have one operating system window, but you have more than 10 or 15 support applications running in your endpoint. If you will not patch properly, that vulnerability may be exploited by attacker, and malware can infect your endpoint system. So that's a very important point. Second point is hardening of your server side also. Vulnerability management has been talked, but patching is equally important. One more point I would like to add here for the protection of our environment, that our port management. Many times we found we have in our hardening exercise like multiple ports has been opened without doing proper analysis, like why this RDP port for this particular application, whether it was needed, SMB port was opened, whether that port was needed to open that particular application. These things CISO functions should ask without any fear to the application team. Generally all the or server or IT infra team. Generally these queries comes from application team sometime or infra team, like we need this port to be opened, and without any question that port's being opened. Just ask what's the architecture of your application, why you need this particular port to be open. Or there is no other way, just open with some for trusted host only. No need to open for all. So these are the basic questions which used to be asked, a few years or 5-6 years back. That still need to be asked, because only implementing cutting edge technology is not sufficient. we should create a hygiene to stop ransomware attack. So that is the point. And for malware attack, prevention of malware attack, organizations should have this IDA system, a strong enough IDA system, intrusion detection system in the organization.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Bhavesh, sir. So we understand about the controlling endpoint, malware management, even the firewall rules and the ports management. So that has to be the robust and well concrete process. It should be in place to stop all these such attacks, malware attacks and ransomware attacks. Going ahead with Makesh, sir. So though we have understand and we have discussed the strategies in bits and pieces in multiple points. So I'd like to have an understand what the strategy can be taken up in the form of the response to a ransomware attack. Maybe kind of like taking like an alternative of the insurance and everything.
Okay. Again, little uncomfortable question, which anybody will think about when actually ransomware is infected to an organization and how to handle that, right? Again, I think one of my fellow panelists mentioned, I think the ransomware drill is very, very important. So in today's context, I think cyber attack simulation, because of regulations for regulated entities, happens on a periodic basis. But I think it has to happen at more frequent level and it has to happen at multiple layers. One is at a management level, where all the CXOs are participating, including the decision makers. And of course, I think your chief executive or chief operating guy has to be a commander who has to take the decisions along with business. Second level of tabletop exercise has to happen at an operating level, where all the executors or people who are responsible for managing stuff, including IT, infra, IT applications, your security partners, and a lot of other people at an operating level has to be involved, and there should be a very clear demarcation of roles and responsibilities. When ransomware attack happens, how to respond. In fact, I think last week there were one large organization was impacted, and the CISO of that organization came in public and he mentioned about the dire need of having tabletop exercises, because it was a clear case of chaos where people are not aware about their roles and responsibilities, and people are not aware about their decision-making authorities. And there are a lot of confusions, and it is bound to happen because when there is a crisis, organization will stop thinking in peace. So there will be a lot of pressure. So one is like we should have a strong framework how to handle cyber crisis. Second is we need to have a very frequent test and exercise on tabletop as well as at a simulated level. Coming to the point, what was asked when ransomware impacts, what we need to do, there are technical steps as per SOP which has to be followed, which is well defined, which should be well defined. Beyond that, what we can do, of course, I think we can immediately inform our cyber insurers in case if we need to get additional support as a partner, and if you are going to do a claim, then it's well in picture, we need to immediately inform them. And second important point is, if it is really an impact, then immediately inform certain and take additional inputs and support from them. And if required, call for a partner agency who can do forensics and additional investigation. These are the three things which we need to do immediately. On and above the SOPs which needs to be followed in terms of NIST framework, where you would have detected at any point of kill check, not necessarily after the infection has happened. And once the infection has happened, how to isolate and ensure that the prevention is done so that the impact is not felt by the organization to the code. Then actually have your cyber crisis team to invoke the cyber crisis forum where the relevant people will take their task. So your cyber crisis forum should have people who are responsible for media communications, people who are responsible for taking decisions, people who are supposed to take corrective actions in terms of both response as well as recovery. This is recently, again in a closed room discussion, one of the learning which I got it is like, in most of the organizations, I think recovery becomes a very, very difficult and challengeable task. The reason being that is like, most of the organizations are not aware about their data visibility, their crown jewel identification, the hosting infrastructure which has the crown jewels hosted or stored. Unless you have that, you will not be able to prioritize your recovery. So it is very, very important. In a same attack, assume that if your Active Directory is also down, if your core system is also down, you have ancillary systems also down. You have some system which is not very critical in terms of confidentiality, but very, very critical in terms of availability to run the show. So I think you should have a prioritization in terms of matrix, which is clearly defined as by the businesses, and it is communicated to the relevant people. And you should also build the required capacity for restoration, because in one organization where ransomware was impacted, they had a fantastic framework, they had fantastic tools and technologies. Unfortunately, it fell through the other side of the wall where the hacker was able to get control of the system. Now the ransomware is already infected, right? Now during the response and recovery, they realized response was happening smoothly, but when they initiated the recovery of the systems and data, that is the time they realized their capacity of their infrastructure is not enough to catch hold of this restoration, because restoration has to happen without touching the primary infected systems, because as one of my fellow panelists mentioned, it is required for forensics analysis. So you can't actually restore, sometimes you have to build a parallel infrastructure. And that's where I really realized that recovery is becoming very, very important. So in our organization also we started thinking, and we have already done one gap assessment. We are able to find out certain gaps. And I'm pretty sure if you guys do reverse engineering on that, to look at where you guys stand, you will find a lot of gaps in terms of restoration capabilities, which is very important, because we all believe today prevention is not 100%, right? The detection response along with the recovery is the only choice which we have in front of us. And we need to have, in terms of tools, technologies, as well as processes, and assurance of it is going to work by doing various simulation and test exercises. Thank you.
Just I would like to add just one point here. In ransomware, post-attack recovery and restoration is a very tricky thing. And most of the organizations who got affected from ransomware they hired one agency. But there is a catch in hiring agency, because if you have not onboarded, previously, then signing agreement, defining a scope, arranging resource, it takes 5 to 7 days. That is the average timeline people has measured, and that's a very precious time, because your business is not running from last 2, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. That's you are losing money. So my suggestion is, if you feel you don't have expertise, in-house resource to recover and restore, please do create an agreement with some partner. Just a blank agreement, like if we will get a hit, you will support us, you will provide us the resource. Because then it's an obligation on your partner to rush you immediately. That will help you. Second thing, recently I was in a FinSec summit where very senior people from CERDIN were there to address very close group. And the executive director of CERDIN said, look, if you have ransomware attack, don't hesitate to contact us. We will help you and we will not charge you. We are not. He said in Hindi, मुझे सरकार पैसा देता है. आप डरो मत, आप हमें कांटेक्ट करो, हमारा टीम इमीडिएटली अवेलेबल होगा. ये भी नहीं कि 4 दिन 5 दिन बाद, we'll reach you immediately. And he also said, look, we handle multiple even private organizations. After that, on an average daily basis or weekly basis, we used to receive call from that organization for some kind of support. So that's a trust building exercise being done by even certain and some government agencies. So if you feel you have a less resource, less money, do some agreement with your partner or keep certain number handy, their contact detail handy, approach certain, they will help you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. In a similar line, I would request Mayank, sir, you can provide your response back. In a similar line, I would request you to add something from the remediation perspective as well. So we have understand about how we can respond, how we can plan, how we can detect. But can you just give us insight and the view from the remediation perspective as well?
So once it's been identified, like we are hit by ransomware and the business is stopped and we are looking how to come back to the normal business. Obviously, the investigators which are there or the forensic investigation team will basically try and help you to restore and identify the data. But restoration is still lies with the IT operations and the team that is working in the background. So obviously, the remediation piece will involve like you are creating a new fresh setup wherein the fresh application setup is available and you are bringing up the application and attaching the database and the data, so that your RTO and RPO is being meet up to your requirement or the business requirement. That is one aspect of area. I would rather than remediation, I would say during the this ransomware time, it's more important like CISOs play a role of mostly getting the business up and running rather than the communication, because the clear goals of communication and everything should be clearly defined in the marketing and the roles that should be clearly given to CXOs. So CISO should not be drafting an email or something like that. All those has to be pre-drafted in certain manner, though everything cannot be drafted prior. But yes, it will help them to save the time, because during the time of the detection of ransomware, time is the key element which everybody has to look at. So I think from the remediation piece, one is like having your data backup very safe and restore it and plan that drill very frequently. It cannot be quarterly, half yearly, yearly. It has to be weekly, monthly for the critical, I would say, backups that you are having. Because otherwise, you are just leaving it for the last moment. It sometimes won't be behaving as you want to be. So that's what something I want to do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Though we have discussed about the detection, response, remediations, recovery, much time to how we can tackle the hackers. So I will request Rajamohan sir, so can you just provide us your view, like if we have got an attack, I don't have a backup right now with me, so I will not be in positions to recover and restrict me. So how I can negotiate with the hacker or how I can fight with the hacker?
That's a good question, because there is no specific way to deal with this, and you cannot fight with hacker or attacker, whatever it is. So first thing first, once you identify that attack happened and your data is encrypted, you need to verify your backup. If you don't have any backup, that is a different thing. And if you have backup, see that to what extent your backup will support you. That is 20%, 30%, 40%, what percent it is encrypted. Second, inform the relevant authorities, all stakeholders. You have to inform your board, C-level executives like CFO, CRO, and then CTO, CMO, everybody who is part of it. And inform the regulatory bodies like IRDA, RBI, CERT, because they are the mandated guidelines. After that, then you will be emotional at that point in time. You will, as Makesh already explained, you have to have certain roles in place. You have to have a media person, you have to have a a communication specialist to communicate internal teams, external teams. You have to have certain designated persons in place, and they will be doing this activity. Otherwise, if multiple people are handling, wrong message may go out, or different versions of communications may go out. Next, you have to identify and onboard a extraction negotiation specialist. Because you yourself may not be able to negotiate with the attacker. Then you have to be respectful with the attacker. You cannot be shouting or you cannot be unprofessional with the attacker. Because your hands are tied. You cannot be emotional. So that is where extraction negotiation specialist will come into picture. Because
I'm not the chooser basically.
they are neutral, so they will be able to tackle the situations neutrally. And then offer small amounts. Don't need to be agreeing on the whatever they are asking for. Try to offer small amount and try to convince them that you can only shell out small amount. Whether they agree, not agree, depends on the business impact, what is that you are losing. There are multiple parameters to it. At what amount you will be able to agree and whatever you can pay out is a different thing. Then you do not disclose the attacker that you have cyber insurance. That is one point. Then you have to just ask them, once you have to decide whether to pay or not to pay. If you have decided to pay it, then you have to ask for sample decryption key. You have to ask him to show that it is decrypting. You have to look at the files, whether they are getting decrypted or not. And then once that is done, then finally you have to see that you have to be prepared. Even if you pay ransom, you need to be prepared and expect that your files are stolen, may be sold in the deep dark web. That might happen because they are attackers, they can do anything. And if you have to pay the money, you have to look at the legality of it, whether it is legal or not. Otherwise, you should not land into another trouble.
I would like to just add here.
Yes, sir.
So your straight question was how to handle this attacker. So individual organization will not in a position to handle this attacker. But yes, who is handling? Agencies. So every big or country is having their own threat intel. So what you understand? How they get that threat intel? So they infiltrate in these hackers' gang. So you might have remembered that last month we have a huge DDoS attack on our infrastructure like airports, many big hospitals where DDoS attacks. So even agencies, government agencies having aware that which IBM server they are using, in which country they having that servers hosted, from which country these attackers were controlling these servers. So all these threat intel were available with the organization. That's why we able to prevent these big DDoS attacks. You might have remembered 7-8 countries declared a war in the last month in April. It was published on a LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Like people from Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Turkey, Sudan, Pakistan, all these countries, they have created a group and they started attacking on India and Israel. So we have threat intel, that's why we able to avert that. So those agencies, they have work, to handle these attackers, they are doing that. Individual organization cannot do that because that is not our job. And we are not, getting funded or getting motivated to do that job. But yes, agencies are doing that and they are doing successfully, I'm telling you.
Okay, thanks for the good
I will
information.
also add here.
Yes, sir.
It is very important that you understand that this industries are financed by ransomware payments. Okay, so it is more of economics here. So you should stop such kind of payments. It should be only last resort you pay them. Because unless and until you stop paying them, they will keep on continuing like that. So finally, if all companies stop payment, present, and many foreign countries have banned such payments. Okay, so we should also go for that and we should stop that financing. So when financing stops, this kind of activities of ransomware will also eventually die. That is the last thing.
So a couple of points, Sanjay. I'm yet to see a successful negotiation with any hacker. In most of the cases, it has led to a data breach or doing double extortion. Second important point is today there is a big debate which is happening between reinsurers and insurers to really block and stop paying to ransomware gangs. One is like they have already started looking at whether the payments are happening to ransomware groups where it's state sponsored or it is sponsored for any terror attacks. They have a list of that. Now going forward, they are talking about stopping complete ransomware payments to any groups. So organizations has to bear the expenses. Most of the times it may not be viable in terms of economics around it, and it has a huge reputation around it. Very important point which my fellow panelists mentioned about is having an extortion mediator in between to talk to these guys will really help us to go a long way. Because whether we are going to pay or not, buying time and talking to people will really help us to identify which type of malware, who is a group, what modus operandi they use, what kind of impact it has already been given in the organization, and it will also help us to gain time in terms of response and recovery as well. But all said and done, I think paying ransomware is going to be a challenge going forward. Please go ahead and relook your cyber insurance cover in terms of ransomware payments. In most of the cyber insurance renewals in the recent past, insurers have capped ransomware payments to 50%. In addition to that, they have also asked for co-payments of 50% from the organization. This is blanket. If not today, I think tomorrow this is going to come back to most of the organizations. So the liability of organization to pay such payments is going to increase in future.
Thanks a lot, thank you very much. It was really a good discussion and very insightful from all the panel members. Unfortunately, we are running short of the time, so I do not have the questions to be answered by the members. We will be available outside and in the inside the room, and we can have, and we will be very much ready to respond to any of your questions and the queries. Conclusion of the call is that, or I will say the closing statement is nothing but ransomware attack is kind of like a pandemic attack. Okay, the people usually says that मुझे कभी कुछ नहीं होगा. Okay, so similar way ransomware, I will say that no one can say that my organizations or the organizations which I used to work with or which I will going to work with will never going to have a ransomware attack. Okay, so today might be you or yesterday might be them, tomorrow might be me. So it will be there, but how we have to work upon that is what we have discussed. We have to focus on our infrastructure, security, cyber security, and then we can stop the ransomware attack. Yes, sir?
We have one question.
Yeah, please, sir.
The question is actually, I think it will be interesting to many people because it's bothering me for long and I was waiting for this session to ask. And after I won't get all of you together outside. See, this ransomware thing, ever since this one of the NBFCs have been impacted in the last 4 months and the operation were down for one. This discussion has been going on in our organization for very intensely. One of the suggestions which has been discussed is that let's focus on the risk. And the risk which this person mentioned was, right now we were focusing on I part all along for so many years, I was IT, and then we started focusing on S, which was security, and recently we are talking about focusing on K, which is the knowledge and education of the user. why don't you add one more R for resilience? Okay, assuming that person is going to make a whatever your IS team will do, IT team will do, but they are always one step ahead because they are smarter. So if you focus on resilience part and ensure your data is backed up well, you recover well, and your data is encrypted. So even if this guy goes, there will be a bit of loss of reputation, but that will, everybody now knows in the industry that, when I'm giving the data, it is at a risk because company may do whatever they want to do, but still it can get hacked. So take cyber insurance adequately to the extent of under data privacy law also you get covered, and you focus on resilience. Do not worry too much about the let I do what they are doing, let S do what they are doing, A do what they are doing, but start focusing on resilience. So in 6 months' time, you will be able to have a peace of life because something happened, you can always recover. The main thing is recovery rather than going down under. What is the views of the panel?
So I will just add here to the So most of the organizations having this risk-based approach, they identified risk, mitigating control, and so that gives some kind of false sense of security. Okay, this is the malware management, we have these technology, and it's pretty controlled. But organizations should think like certain types of cyber risk having no control mechanism, like n number of technology, whatever control you have, it's not going to be sufficient. So organizations should have categorized some critical risk irrespective of controls in the organization, like this ransomware, malware management, DDoS attack, all these things treated as a critical, irrespective of n number of control in the organization. Then only you can, in every discussion, you can say, look, whatever control you have, you will treat these risks as a critical every time. And we will not take any, that loose approach related to this particular area.
So I think, Bhavesh, what you are saying is also what Makesh also mentioned. That, if you start, we should now start focusing on resilience. So that, take a worst case scenario.
So with all due respect and all due respect panel members, we are really short on time. So for the great camaraderie, please, I request to take it outside. Because we have a whole hall of audience waiting for the award ceremony. So if you could kindly, wrap it up, that would be great.
Thank you. Sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for this wonderful panel session here. And now I would like to call on stage Mr. Dabholkar, Managing Director and CEO from Inside Business Machines Private Limited, to kindly do the honors of felicitating this wonderful panel of experts here. Can we have Piyush on stage, please? Felicitate the wonderful panel of experts. We'll start with Mr. Makesh Chandramohan. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Mr. Makesh Chandramohan from Aditya Birla Capital for his wonderful contribution in the panel. Moving next to Mr. Mayank Mehta from Bajaj Allianz Life. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mayank from Bajaj Allianz Life for his wonderful contribution in the panel. Moving next to Mr. Parshuram Dabholkar from HDFC Securities. A big round of applause to Parshuram for his wonderful contribution in the panel session. Moving next, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Bhavesh Kumar from SK Finance Limited. A big round of applause to Bhavesh for his wonderful contribution in the panel session. Moving next to Mr. Mohan from IFFCO Tokio General Insurance Company Limited. A big round of applause to Mr. Mohan for his wonderful contribution in the panel session. And now we move on to our honorable panel moderator, Mr. Sanjay Jaiswal from Nuvama Wealth Management. A big round of applause to Sanjay for wonderfully moderating the panel session. Now I would request the honorable panel members to kindly step forward, and Piyush, you could also join them for an all-panel group photograph.
And I must say, this was a very engaging session.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Discussion, and the way it was articulated and how to handle such kind of situations.
Great. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, once again for this wonderful panel, Ransomware Attacks, Risks, Protection and Prevention. And we had an extremely talented plethora of experts who enlightened us. Thank you so much, panel members. Thank you, Krish.